There was actually a 1 week period where I more or less shut myself in a very small hotel room in Tokyo. So I came up with like an alternative concept. That was what was to become Polkadot.
Today we launch. Okay, today we launch.
Taking all of those ideas and then applying them to bleeding edge distributed decentralized systems. Awesome. People want to be able to do things.
Bring in the moment people, make everybody able to run your stuff on these decentralized computer.
Here is some construction material, here is some know-how. Build what you think is going to be the best thing that it can be.
If this is the scope of Web3 crypto blockchain, not only compete within it, but try to go beyond it and see what else is possible.
This freedom is well earned, and we should use it as best as we can.
Welcome everyone. We're here to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Parity. We're going to chat about history and also see what was the background and the story of how we got where we are today. Gavin, tell us about how Parity was founded, which was originally called ETH Core, and tell us about the early days.
Well, it sort of began conceptually, I suppose it began when we were in, we'd launched Ethereum, so it was like autumn 2015. And, it seems odd now, but, back then ETH wasn't worth very much. It was down to like 50, 40 cents. And the Ethereum Foundation didn't have any real capital, and its ETH reserves didn't seem to be so extensive. So Vitalik and I sort of, and a bit Jeff, but mostly Vitalik and I were like, let's try and do something like that maybe can get some investment, that can continue this down this path. This was sort of the basis of the initial meeting that we had in London, that sort of put down the ideas for what was for ETH Core, for what was to become Parity. Vitalik, after this meeting, at some point after this meeting, a few weeks later, sort of said he didn't want to be founder of the company, but he would be an advisor. So that's where sort of he fit in. And we sort of, we knew that the Ethereum sort of chapter, the Ethereum Foundation chapter was sort of coming to a close, and that it made a lot of sense to sort of go off and try and create, this like Ethereum sort of spin-off that would be potentially could receive investment, go into products. That was the sort of premise that we began with, put in a bit of seed capital. I think we sort of raised, between ourselves a few tens of K. We set about seeing if there was, because there are a lot of people that were that were working in ETHDev that were uncertain of the future within ETHDev. Again, Foundation didn't have so much money, so it couldn't really guarantee anyone's future. And that's basically where, we sort of decided, let's create this Rust client for Ethereum. That was our first sort of technical project. And so two of the coders that were sort of very prominent in the C++ team in my part of Ethereum, Arkady and Marek, were very keen on sort of pushing this forward. So they became sort of two of the first employees, founding employees.
And then at what point the idea of Polkadot and its paper came to be?
So yeah, we focused on building this Rust client as ETH Core. We called it Rust Client Parity for a few reasons. We found that there was no obvious way of moving forward within the as core developers. There's no obvious way of moving forward within the Ethereum ecosystem for us. Of course, there were people doing application layer stuff and launching their own tokens and all the rest of it, but we didn't really want to do this because that wasn't our core competency. We were always quite low-level systems coders. Around summer 2016, late summer 2016, Marek and I were in San Francisco. I can't remember what we were doing there. Some maybe we were meeting a VC or something. I can't remember. And we were just sort of discussing what, because Ethereum hadn't made much of a move towards Ethereum 2, which was what we were all about. We were like, right, we're going to be the coders for ETH 2. We're going to be the best ETH 2 client. And they really hadn't I mean, they still haven't. It's like 10 years later. So they hadn't.
The execution sharding model that they
Yeah,
wanted, yeah.
precisely. And so, at that point, it's like, we didn't want to step on our turf. So I didn't want to come up with an alternative to ETH2, but then I also didn't want to just sit around, doing the same ETH1 stuff. So I came up with an alternative concept, and that was what was to become Polkadot, which was basically this idea of having not a homogeneously execution sharded chain, but a heterogeneously sharded chain, and really push the idea of these execution shards being their own thing with their own token economies and their own program code and domain specific functionality, but also base it all on WASM, so everything was easily checkable. And a very early version of Polkadot, before I'd sort of come to the conclusion that WASM was totally practical to be used, the assumption was that the actual relay chain client would include hard-coded versions of all of the parachains. And so if you wanted to launch a new parachain type, you would actually have to get the relay chain code maintainers to sort of include your logic, which was going to be a lot more horrible, but thankfully than what turned out, which was a lot better.
Was using WebAssembly before this known, or parity?
No one had thought of it at this point. It was relatively new in summer 2016. I think it wasn't long. I think it was around, but I think it had only just been sort of standardized. And the big sort of cool stuff was still Emscripten. And I think there was another one. I think Emscripten was in Firefox, and I think Chrome had some other thing.
Yeah.
And then the two teams sort of collaborated to standardize on WebAssembly. And then it started to become clear over time that WebAssembly was going to be fast enough to be able to run the on-chain logic.
And then eventually Parity built Substrate, which is also interesting to talk about. It's used both within Polkadot and also outside. What was the motivation behind it?
So we started, the basis of Substrate was just Polkadot. You wanted to make Polkadot relay chain. And so if you actually go to the GitHub repository of Substrate, and you sort of, I don't know if GitHub records this, but the repository began being called Polkadot because it was Polkadot, right? It was just a Polkadot chain. And then we renamed the Polkadot chain to Substrate and took the Polkadot specific stuff out and put that in the actual Polkadot repository. And whether this was such a good idea in hindsight is arguable. It did probably create a fertile ground for Substrate to be utilized by other projects.
I think as a technological contribution to the broader blockchain Web3 space, I think Substrate is something that I'm happy I've contributed to. I think it has served a lot of purposes. That's a good thing we've achieved. This brings us to about mid-2018, mid-2019, which is where Parity eventually hired the rest of us on this table. So I want to now talk about that. You two can each say how you found Parity, why you applied, and what was the first days and weeks like.
I can go first. I think I was hired before you.
When was your...
October 2018.
Then it was earlier. But it's fine.
So I was just, I happened to be living in Germany at the time, and I kind of needed a job as I was broke. And I wanted to work in blockchain because I'd been into blockchain since 2014. A lot of my friends were in the open source movement and were into this stuff, hacking on it and things like that. I said, okay, I'll go to Berlin Blockchain Week, see if there's anything good. And I met some Parity employees at a place that was unrelated to Parity. It was just, there was free beer. And we kind of got to talking, and they were really cool people. And I said I was looking for a job, and they said, you should apply. And I applied, and I got the job.
Yeah, for me it was, I was also searching for a job. I was working for a startup before, and I was on parental leave in April April 2018, and when I came back, it was there's not that much more to do. So I was getting another 5 months of I was still getting paid, but I was just doing some open source work, and then realized, okay, it's time to find a new job. And I wanted to continue doing Rust. I was doing Rust before, so like, yeah, I don't know. I found somewhere like that Pepti was searching people, and I applied. It was also like I was talking to, I think first Marek, and then to Arkady, and then someone else, I don't know. And
Me.
You were also, but I think before you there was like someone else. After every step I thought, okay, I'm out now, because I was just talking. I was just talking to Marek, I was just talking to Arkady, and it was like I just talked. And yeah, with you it was kind of funny, because like I think we needed three turns until we finally met. It was like I got scheduled 2 times, and he was not appearing when I was waiting there. Well, there was still this appear in or whatever, where just a link. At one point I joined, and someone else was already there and said, okay, then I'm probably leaving, but I'm already waiting here for half an hour. And yeah, and then in the third one we met at near the Berlin office, and then I met Kevin, but it was also just talking. But then I got the job.
At the time, our interviewing was different. You used to have a call with all candidates at the time who were joining. Why was that? You wanted to like get to know everyone, or
A bit, and initially it was everyone. Like when Parity was sort of 10, 15 people, it was everyone. When we got to 30 or 40, it became just engineers, like just technical people. We grew so much in the 2020 sort of time that I was unable to do that. Like it would have been too much time. But it was mainly, it was for 2 reasons. One of them, it's like, what do they say? It's like a bad hire can cost you 6 good hires. So it was very important to me that Parity was a small company, and I didn't want to. I've had experience with bad hires in the Ethereum days, and I didn't want to risk that. But by the time people got to me, they were. I think it was maybe just one guy that in my entire history of 10 years that I said no. So it didn't happen very often, thankfully. But I was very keen to like sort of really make sure. And partly it's because I wanted to get an idea for you can get a feel for like someone's level of curiosity and intellect in half an hour or an hour just chatting about random stuff. And I wanted to make sure that the ones that I thought were going to be very capable of working with me, I knew who they were, so in time I would be able to assign them and so.
I think I was the latest in this group to join in January 2019. I was also broke at the time. I was finishing my master's degree, and halfway through it, I really wanted a break. Like I wanted a change, and I thought looking for a job and just pausing the degree would be a good idea. And I knew about like Bitcoin and Ethereum before, but I actually know very little about the space. So I think when I joined and I was interviewing, I definitely felt like the biggest imposter in the world. Like I was like, this is insane to me. I don't know the language well. I don't know the technology well. I think in like my cover letter for the job posting, there was like one for Rust core engineer and there was one for a JavaScript engineer. And I said my skills are better for the I know this, but I don't know this. And if I'm given the time, I would work hard and learn it. And I also had some interviews with Marek, Arkady, and then Gav. And yeah, there were. I remember I was also it was mostly talking, and it was like chilled interviews. And let's talk about like some of the things that happened in those early days of Substrate. So you invented Solidity, which was the primary language for Ethereum. And eventually you invented something similar for Substrate and Polkadot world, the SRML, as we used to call it, and nowadays called Frame.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
I wrote the initial design spec for Solidity. And I mean, this is kind of a fun part of building systems. It's like kind of doing this like super opinionated stuff that you can really sort of use some of what you believe are the important expression systems of expressing meaning. And it's the same is kind of true for Frame as well. So Frame came about, or SRML, Substrate Runtime Module Library. Okay, it just rolls off the tongue. Just it came about through. Initially we were doing. We were writing Polkadot. We were writing the relay chain, and we needed some. We had a runtime that would interpret transactions, and not a runtime, but a transaction interpretation system, right? And retain some state balances and staking and so forth. And it's like, okay, well, we want this to be modular. So we make a few different modules, and then all the modules are sort of like kind of hard coded. And it's like, it's not so easy to, like, for example, make the module that may have a number of transaction entry points all like automatically kind of get collated into a general transaction format. And so it became kind of initially just a way of more easily taking the code that we had anyway and sort of attaching functionality to it, like that was sort of based upon almost like metadata based upon the function names and so forth, routing that in. And then before long it occurred to me that obviously others are going to want to write chains as well, and they'll want different types of transactions. And sometimes they'll want similar parts of the transaction, like they may want a balances module or an assets module or an FTs module, whatever, staking. And some things they won't want to put in their chains. Sort of transaction execution system or state system, whatever you want to call it. We called it runtime. There was actually a 1 week period where I more or less shut myself in a very small hotel room in Tokyo at the Appa Hotel for one of the Ethereum conferences there then at the time, and it would have been, I guess, in late spring 2018. And I basically figured out this like associated type system that like Rust had, and that you could use the associated type system basically for wholly describing and configuring a set of runtime modules. So I prototyped, got the idea that this was going to work, and then actually set about building it, like switching out all of the code from what it was, which was totally hard coded, into this like kind of soft coded but type correct configuration system. And it took a week. Like, it was a big PR. And I was at the beginning of it, I was like, this is never going to work. But I couldn't see any reason why it wouldn't, apart from maybe compile times. So yeah, and it got done. And I actually skipped most of the conference because of that. But
in the early days, we had this declare something macros. I'm not sure if that was you or you who made them, or maybe you improved them at some point.
I improved them.
One of your first things that you worked on, maybe.
Probably. At the beginning, I was working with Gav, and he was giving me stuff. And when I joined, I had no idea about blockchain. I knew Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I knew them by name. But that was all I knew about it. It was it was all like a magical black box to me. And we had kind of easy issues at this time. It was like, do that. And I was doing a lot of macros at this time. So that was also something, and I had think before written one macro or whatever before joining Parity, which I copied from Stack Overflow. But then I was doing working in the runtime, mainly in the runtime. Then one of the first things I was creating this metadata. The early metadata was actually like a JSON metadata, which we then quite fast replaced with the scaling coded metadata what we have today. And then I'm doing a lot of these modules of frame, or not frame, SRM, like Decal module and Decal storage or whatever it was. I don't remember all the names we had.
The source code for those macros is a piece of history and art to look back at. With this where you parse a little bit of it, then you pass the rest to the other arm, and then this just repeats.
I had this one macro which was generating other macros. That was really crazy, but it was also debugging this stuff was really complicated. It was I'm really happy that we are these procedure macros. They came back and they came up in this time. I think in 2018 they got it to stable. So that's when we.
And then one of the first things I remember about you, Aaron, is the launch of one of our testnets, actually for for cumulus-based chains and parachains, Rococo.
Yeah. I actually
What's the
joined.
name, first of all.
What?
What is the name?
Rococo?
What does it mean?
It's a type of art, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a period, like a period of French art, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bob came out.
Yeah. I actually joined before the first substrate testnet was launched, which was called. We named them in the same way. There's Flaming Fur.
I mean, more on that, one of the things that's fascinating about Parity Polkadot to me is like the namings that we come up with. I don't know which group of people are the masterminds behind them. Like, and there's always like links, like Spree is like also the name of the Berlin
Yeah.
thing. That's kind of cool.
It's not a station, but it is.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, I just want to say, like, a coincidence or not. I'm not sure, but.
I didn't assume it's a coincidence. I thought it's.
I mean, it's
cool.
I still remember when I was around when they named Babe. So like it was Grandpa existed before, and then I think you or someone wrote it, and then they tried to come up with words that would like these letters to make some sense.
In the end, Al went with Grandpa. Like Grandpa was Rob's suggestion for what the thing should be called. The one that I liked was Shaft.
Yeah, who comes and executes.
Something finality tool. But in the end, Al went with Grandpa.
Pretty sure I heard Jeff also suggesting something that he reverse engineered into be badass. But I forgot what it was.
It wasn't Sassafras though.
Possibly, yeah. Then 2019, Parity did something else that, again, to the best of my knowledge, was first of its kind to run a incentivized test network, if you want to call it, like Kusama. How did it came to be, or did you think you would pull off as it did?
Yeah, I think it sort of delivered more or less what I was expecting it to. Maybe a little bit. Was maybe a little bit more valuable than I was expecting. I mean, I was maybe expecting it to get to sort of $10. It went quite a bit higher for a while, but people sort of treated it largely as what we wanted, which is something that, was sat between a testnet and a production net. So a real high value, a valuable testnet or a low value production, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But like, it turns out that not auditing code in order to before you launch the network doesn't actually matter that much, as long as you're upfront with saying this code will not be audited before launch.
And this like chaos-based marketing of Kusama, I think, also worked out really well. People really liked it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, again, it's really just about being upfront about what it is, and I suppose, it's a good idea, to be honest. But brutally honest.
I mean, it's a really good motto. Like, the tagline is just, it's so memorable, it's sticky.
Yeah. I heard a joke once that both expect chaos and no promises makes perfect fit for like underwear merch. Like, you can have it on your underwear. Like, no promises, expecting. So at some point we were speaking that, every retreat, everything is like a t-shirt, and socks, underwear, and then someone happens to be good.
Do you also, you were part of this retreat back 2019?
Where we named Kusama.
No, we don't renamed it.
The Kusama launch, where they thought...
It was before the Kusama launch. It was in June, July or something.
Yeah.
It was, and we launched in October. I think October.
Yeah, late 2019 we launched. And the retreat, I remember, it was in a north of Germany.
North of Germany.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I still remember us sitting there with like a laptop and in shorts, and like these other guys be there and like on their holidays in a suit or whatever, like, and looking at us like, what are these freaks doing? And I think at some point they asked Sergey, like someone Sergey Atomic, like they thought they're like they're working there, like they're cleaning up or whatever.
I think they wanted to go to the pool and they were like, "Oh, sorry, it's only for the guests," thinking that we are not the guests. So how did we come up with the name Kusama?
Originally, I think it was sort of Polkadot Beta or something. And it was Rob that suggested Kusama, just off a well-known artist who uses a lot of polka dots in her work. And yeah, it's easy to say, it's easy to spell, it works in many different languages. Yeah, it was like a sensible thing.
Did we have any conflicts with?
I think at one point there's a foundation, so I don't think it was her, but I think it's a foundation, and they sort of caught sight of the fact that there was something that had the same name, and I think they were like kind of a bit not upset, but like not sure. I think they sort of expected maybe that they were going to be asked or something, and I mean it's fine. It's like there's no legal issue with putting something that happens to have the name that is someone else's surname. That no one has protection over rights over their surname. But yeah, you know, I mean, I think there is like definite opportunity to do something with said artist, but you know, in this game, it's all about, you know, sort of social networks and, you know, building trust and all the rest of it. So, and we are very much trust free. So we're not necessarily the right people to be doing it. Optimal people to do.
Yeah, there was an idea on Kusama for people to get tattoos and then join a club. How did this start? And
I guess people talked about it, and then someone wrote some code. And did I write the code? I might have written the code. Can't remember now. It's such a long time ago. But yeah, I'm never have said.
Bites on my leg. Yeah, sure. Basti has to leave the room because he's not.
But yeah, I mean, this I think was very helpful as a indication for two things. One of them was, can this? You know, Kusama was created essentially as a test, like a test net. It didn't have anything behind it, so to speak. And whatever the hell is behind crypto, I don't know. But like, it didn't have like a foundation that was like really pushing it or whatever, and spending money trying to get it promoted or whatever. And then within the context of this sort of theoretically quite vacuous crypto token, right, this bottle cap, there was this idea of, well, we'll give you bottle caps if you get a tattoo. And a tattoo is a very meaningful thing, right? It's a physical alteration to your body. I was wondering, will people get alterations to their body on the basis of getting bottle caps? What is basically bottle caps? And it turns out that yes, they do. Like, there are quite a few people that have done this now, and this was kind of fun as just a social experiment, but it was also very interesting because it sort of paved the way to what would become the first mechanism for proof of personhood. Yeah, so I consider it a very valuable experiment, and I'm still like quite keen on opening, you know, spaces that will recognize those who have those who are in the society.
I still remember the society getting raided by, I think, Brazilian people or whatever.
Yeah, quite a few Brazilians.
Because like for them it was like a lot of money that they could get. I don't know what it was.
I think there was a bit of false information. Some crypto YouTube channel, maybe Coinboy or something, mistakenly said that, you know, when you join you get a reward, then there is like a fixed income, and then it just
not the latter.
Yeah.
I think Louis joined, I think he was the 5th person or so. And I think at that point it was 1,000 KSM to join. I think that was the payout. And, you know, I don't think it was worth that much at the time, but maybe $10 or so. Yeah. So I think he still got quite a lot of money for his tattoo. And if he'd have kept it, I think it was later to go up to about $500. So he would have made $500,000 from his tattoo.
I got 100 something, I think, when I joined. And Sean and I wanted to do this thing where he would join immediately after me. And then we would, because you have to put the identifier of the next person, we would be spammed by English. But he bailed out, unfortunately.
I only got 8 KSM because I did mine during COVID. And I bought a tattoo machine. I was like, well, this will pay for the tattoo machine. So, because I didn't want to go out and get a tattoo during COVID. So I figured it was now or never because there was a ton of influx at the time.
So stepping into 2022, this was the year that COVID happened, and we had to like have less retreats, but we were all working remotely already. So tell me how you like the remote work culture. Where does it start? Maybe I'm curious. Like, was it something you put into place originally?
Yeah, I mean, we never really had a proper office that everyone turned up to. This was just not a thing, right? So we began as we sort of began as the embers of ETHDev from the Ethereum Foundation subsidiary. ETHDev was split across many different places. I don't think Stefan Tual, who ran the communications portion, I don't think he went to the office very much. They did have a small office in London, which we actually took over. Parity took it over as what it was. I think it was its literally first office, just for a few months. But I never really worked from an office. A little bit when I was within Berlin, but not so much. And we never really had a policy of working from the office. There are a lot of people that enjoy having an office to go to for the sort of social aspect or whatever, comfort aspect, or not wanting to be at home or whatever. But it was never really, it was something we provided, but never really demanded.
Yeah.
When we found that when people joined the company, it was something that was advantageous if they worked from the office. So we had some employees that didn't really want to work from an office, but for the first 4 months, sort of stayed in Berlin and came to the office every day just to sort of get spun up. There was a period, certainly when we were spinning up, where it maybe was a little bit more advantageous as we were growing fast to have people actually at a central spot. But it was not really, I mean, certainly when the company began, and certainly now, it's not a strong policy that we have.
Yeah. A combination of remote but doing retreats is actually very good. It's has the best of both, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and this was very much how the company began. So the first retreat we did was late 2015 when we began coding the Parity Rust client. And that was me, Arkady, and Marek, just the three of us. And we went off to some random place on the north coast of Germany. And yeah, I mean, it was very, very far out. Was it Germany or Poland anyway? On that Baltic coast. And yeah, we just locked ourselves in a house basically for 2 weeks. I remember that the village didn't have a supermarket or a shop.
What did you eat?
Or a bar, or anything actually. It had one bus stop that had per day 2 buses. Had one in the morning and one in the late afternoon. So if you wanted to go anywhere, we had to get the bus and just hope that there was a bus back. Yeah, so we did one supermarket shop for the entire time, and otherwise just sort of stayed in and coded all day, and then walked around at night time. Walked around in the afternoon. It was, as I say, it was quite far north, and it was winter time, kind of early December, so the sun was going down at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And it had a nice log fire, remember that? And we watched like some classic British, like slightly blokish comedy when we we finished for the day at like 9:30 or whatever for an hour or two. Red Dwarf, I remember we specifically watched, and a bit of Father Ted. And yeah, it was good. It was a nice way of spending 12, 13 days. And the channel that we used to made a channel on whatever we were using at the time, Discord or Realm, I can't remember. And the channel's called Retreat. And that ended up becoming the channel name for all the technical chat, because the 3 technical people were in this channel. And I think that stayed the case until quite late.
Yeah. Rings a bell for me. There was this channel called Parity Retreat, which had a different purpose when I joined.
Yeah. It stuck around for a long time, but then people were too confused.
Expansion. The death of culture.
Do you remember your first retreat? Which one was that?
Mine was in Tenerife, 2019, in September. Yeah, it was awesome.
18. Because 19 I was there. That was
18,
not
sorry, I
Tenerife,
mean
yeah,
18. I mean, yeah. Right after. I joined in beginning of September, and like it was at the end of September.
Yeah, with the flies, I heard.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of flies.
Don't remember.
In the room where we all ate and also worked in the daytime.
Yeah.
You remember this kind of slightly open air?
Yeah, I remember.
room? Yeah, there are a lot of flies.
Okay.
A lot of flies.
I just remember like the first days I was there, like there was this big space we had rented, or this big house or whatever, or multiple houses, and but there was not enough space. So when I arrived, I was sleeping in like this village. I needed to like go upwards like 50 minutes or whatever to this house, and then going back, and yeah. But it was a nice retreat. It was quite small and with many people. And,
70 people. That's how many we were.
And for you, Aaron? For you, Aaron?
Oh, my first retreat was France. Where we
Late
went to.
2019.
I think so, yeah. Because I remember when I joined, the retreat had just happened, and I was like, oh, missed out. But then the one in France was quite good.
This was very good. It had a very good food.
It had very good food. I remember that. And it was a nice place.
Yeah.
It was like the perfect size for the amount of people we were at the time. We snuck in some nice bottles of whiskey. It was also good.
Yeah, right.
And it had the pinball
arcade
machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite good.
I think it was from some company, I probably can't pronounce the name, Chateau Forum something.
Yeah.
Which is the same one that did the Barcelona one.
Yeah. Yes.
There was a joke that after the first Barcelona one, they would, ban us from going back again, but we managed to get in it.
We did eventually. It took some years.
But I mean, they already complained about us. I remember in France that someone every evening there was like to dinner there was like a bottle or like multiple bottles of wine, and like someone said, take the bottles of wine with you. So people started taking the bottles of wine with them, and like 2 evenings later, whatever, someone was sitting somewhere there and like drinking one of these like wine bottles, and like the guy from the hotel was coming. Where do you get this bottle from? I mean, because he, for whatever reason, he knew that the bottle was from this dinner 2 evenings before, and like, so yeah.
It's like beanbags.
But that I think that might have been the first retreat that there was a bar camp, or
Yeah,
what was
that was close.
Oh, yeah.
and that worked out quite well. And I think we tried to replicate it several times since then, but it was never as good.
Yeah. I think that was the only time it worked. But yeah, later didn't work anymore. Sadly. But people don't understand that the aspect of you don't need to prepare anything. That some people don't get this aspect of you don't need to prepare anything. Like they want to prepare always. Like maybe you can put your stuff here before, or like you can start thinking about like it's no. When we got there, like there was a bar camp, there was just a whiteboard, like put your stuff on it, what you want to hear about, what you maybe want to talk about, and then people put like a pointer and say I want to see that, and yeah. I think that's like kind of the beauty that is like just coming out of the moment and not like plan like a conference or whatever.
Yeah, I think with this retreat, just being in the same place and putting these people together is 90% of the work. The rest they would self-arrange.
Yeah. And I think it also like, I would assume that like after the first talks, you maybe also directly get questions because like you maybe watch something and then maybe you get some questions and hey, can someone talk about this one and talk about this one?
So moving on to the year 2020 and the launch, 2021.
No,
2020 is the launch of Polkadot.
Yeah.
Like
May 2020. Yeah. I remembered, I think it was not the launch of the network, but it was the day the token, I think, maybe launched. There was a retreat in Berlin and we had a celebration. But I don't remember the exact of the network launch. We had like a online celebration, maybe.
It came later.
Yeah.
So I still kind of remember like the launch. It was like Gav was a normal day, and Gav, today we launch. Okay, everyone. Okay, today we launch. And yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense because or maybe it was a little bit before, but yeah, I get the point. Otherwise, it's like people always try, like you're pushing always the date like to the next because we want to still integrate that one and still integrate that one. And I think at some point you just need to pull the trigger and say, okay, now we do it. And then we see what happens.
But this was the launch of the network or the day that the token became transferable?
The one that I was in a retreat with you in Berlin was the transferable date. Yeah.
Because we had a few stages, right? Launched the network, and then we switched out the validators to public validators. Then we removed sudo. Then we created transfer that enabled transfers. And then many months later, we got parachains.
Yeah, parachains came late 2021, a
Yeah.
year and a half later.
That's the one I remember the most because I set them up. I was very worried. The first block was just like.
But I think on Polkadot we made an issue. So like with it's just a key issue or whatever. Like the registration, like on Kusama, we like Asset Hub was running with ED 25591 and on Polkadot it running with SR 255. So either way.
To this day, we have some code that handles this.
Exactly, that handles this thing. Yeah. So that was like. I still remember I found the first bug on Polkadot on the live network. People had locked funds and you could not transfer that, but there was some bug in vesting that allowed you to unvest your funds earlier, something like that. Which was good because no one could transfer their funds away because everything was still non-transferable, but you could have unvested.
Yeah.
So
I also remember we changed the denomination, decimal points of Polkadot later, and there was indeed some confusion out of that. I remember friends messaged me, "What is going on? Like this big number in my wallet."
I think it was well contained. I think it could have been an awful lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like people transferring 100x what they meant to, or I think it could have been a whole lot worse. But yeah, I mean, I think when you're going to do something like this, which is essentially unprecedented outside of countries with hyperinflation, you have to accept that there's going to be a degree of confusion and just try to minimize it.
Yeah.
But overall, with Polkadot, I remember we also had this chain candidate ideas, and Polkadot actually was chain candidate one. Like we never had to do any major restart. Kusama again served the purpose. I think now to this day the database folder is called CC3.
Yeah.
So the first two ones got mixed. I don't remember why, but
yeah, I remember one of them. There was an issue with Kusama. One of the Kusamas. What was it? It was like pretty hardcore. I remember Andre had to write quite some grandpa code that changed the
Is that the one where you had to roll back all the blocks? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a faff.
Yeah.
Bit of a faff.
But there was also this one issue I still remember where we made a migration of the balances or whatever. No, all the balances were gone or I don't know where they not exactly. I don't remember exactly, but I remember Guillaume or whatever was one of the guys who didn't claim his KSM at this point. So you could still claim because claiming was an unsigned transaction, so he claimed and then transferred all the funds to the council people. So we could do a rescue runtime upgrade to bring back the share or bring back all the funds, or they were just locked or something like that. But it was funny situation.
That might have been a bad migration. That might have been
that was a bad migration.
when we switched some state thing without migrating the actual keys.
yeah.
So there were no one handling that. That was a good, clever solution.
Yeah.
Skin of the teeth.
Sometimes you need to be lucky.
Yeah.
I remember clearly, the biggest problem with Polkadot, maybe one of the biggest, was something that was my code one way or another. And that I remember very well.
Okay.
It was a tough day. I think we were out, and it was so unlucky because it was a big block that couldn't be like produced in WASM. And we asked validators to go to native, which we had at the time. But then there was a consensus issue, like some Rust sort thingy was actually behaving different on, I don't know, different nodes.
versions of the
It's like 2 bullets at the same.
But I mean, it was written in like it was mentioned in the documentation that it's not stable as unstable or something. I also still remember the day. It was like one day after my birthday. Like I had like a birthday party before, like the day, and then on the day I was. In the morning, I think it was 11 a.m. I saw that there's an issue. Then it was like, yeah, okay, everybody will revert back to native, and then like it continues, and so I logged off, and then later in the afternoon I came back, and then like I was talking with Andre, and it was like, you cannot sync across this block because of this issue. And then we spent like I think the night finding out what is the issue, and then rolling out a fix for that. Which is like also up to this day that you have like in the Polkadot change back like the code substitute, which substitutes this.
That very block.
Yes. So it's broken. So yeah.
This is what you deal with when you build these systems that don't have it just works and it like lives. There's no like shutdown, pause, anything. You have to always keep the history. The first crowd loans were pretty, big numbers, a lot of like attention.
Yeah.
What a crazy 10 years. That was the Barcelona retreat. 2020.
Yeah, around the same time, yeah. I think late 20. I remember like the first crowd loans. I was after the Barcelona retreat that were happening. I think.
Yeah, it was December. I think it was around Christmas time that we actually that they went live.
But we had. No, they started later or they started earlier. There was like some shift or whatever for whatever reason. I don't remember exactly. Like there was a shift with the start of the with the first crowd loan, or like the first slot, and the crowd loan was following slots or whatever.
I think the crowd loan started maybe a bit before like November time, and then the actual parachains launched around like very late December.
Yeah,
I remember there was an online launch.
Yeah,
party.
exactly. Yeah, I remember that. There's Emily and Raoul in the Berlin office. I think they were hosting it, and then you spoke, and yeah, I remember watching the stream on Twitter. I was in Iran at the time, actually, and then I think 2022 was the year where you stepped down as Parity CEO, and you took a bigger role in like being the architect of Future. How did that play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was never particularly comfortable as being CEO, and it wasn't something that I like in the early days. It was always the other people. So I think all 4 of the co-founders of Parity each had a go at being Parity CEO, and then I think. Yeah, just by default, almost, I became CEO in 21 or whatever. No, maybe even earlier, 2020, I think. Yeah, I mean, it was like fine, but I'm making decisions that are, probably need some more context than I really had. And I would have had that context had I gone to sort of more of the meetings, but I didn't really want to spend my time going to meetings. I wanted to spend my time coding and designing and so on. So, eventually it got to the point where I was quite happy sort of passing it on to Björn and moving more into the more fully focus on the technical side. And also this was around the time the fellowship had started. And I felt that this was a good sort of solid kind of structure that I could, sort of feel more kind of at home in. Parity has a lot of, especially back then, had a lot of non-technical aspects to it, like a lot of financial aspects, a lot of operational aspects, a lot of communications and marketing and investor relations and so on. Lots and lots of random other stuff that it's doing that I don't really have that much either desire or, desire to learn, desire to do, or background experience in doing. And so it felt like a very sensible decision to sort of move into a more free-form structure where I could focus on, amongst other things, what was going to become for Polkadot, like the Jam protocol.
Yeah. Afterwards, I think you chose the title Chief Architect. But before that, I'm not sure if I
White
were...
space.
Yes. What
Chief White Space Officer.
was the architect one as well, or was it always white space?
It was always Chief White Space Officer for, like, from Parity's beginning until I stepped down. There was good reason for this. There's a lot of different people with different opinions on the white space. And the Rust format didn't always work that well. So it's like, you work here. This is the white space. The other stuff I'm easy with, but white space.
Yeah. I remember Rust formatter and when is ready enough to introduce it was something that was like very debated in the early days.
Yeah, I mean, we I think at least twice. Pierre was always quite a strong proponent for moving to Rust format.
Yeah.
But my baseline for Rust format was that it had to at least sort of have 80 or 90%, be 80 or 90% in line with the formatting rules that we already had for our code base. And for a while it couldn't do that. But I think eventually they made some alterations and it became viable. Once it was viable, it was like, yeah, fine, whatever.
Yeah. Fellowship was a good mention from that year, but 2023, where I think two major changes were first introduced as an idea and then implemented into Polkadot. Agile core time, like this moving away from this long-term auctions, and OpenGov, although OpenGov was earlier, I think OpenGov, yeah.
I think OpenGov was discussed at the Barcelona retreat the year after the French retreat.
Yeah.
And that was largely on the back of concern that basically putting all this treasury spending amongst 9 council members was going to be problematic for the council members. So we really wanted to actually walk the walk of decentralization. And I think for all its faults, it did achieve what we set out to achieve. And I think it can be improved in various ways. But we probably only know what those improvements were by doing it this way and actually going the hard path. But yeah, that's right. So OpenGov, I think, was like 22?
Yeah, probably launched in 22, yeah.
And sort of devised even before. Because I think it took about a year to a year and a half between like coming up with the initial design, which was done basically in a day, and then actually coding it up, which was done in like a month or two, and then rolling it out, which took the other 18 months.
I also, when I tell about it to people from other like crypto projects or friends who actually don't know blockchain at all, I do mention that, we have this system that is perhaps in some ways a bit more chaotic or different from what others are doing, but I name it as an experiment that's like very bold in that even if it proved to like fail in one or two, some places, it's like valuable learning that, I'm sure others like ourselves and others can look at and, learn from. I think there's a lot of value to that as well. As you said, you only learn some things by doing it and looking back.
Yeah.
But I think also OpenGov has this beauty of that, like all the things are open. And like it was last year, whatever, when like this first treasury report from Alice and Bob came out, and it was like, there was that much spending for marketing and all the kind of things, and it was like all like anti-crypto Twitter or whatever making jokes. But when you go to other projects, you have no idea how much they spent. It's like everything is behind closed doors, and it's like, So, and they probably also do a lot of weird, shady things, which are like, But here you see it in open what is exactly happening. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for the community to actually see how much stuff actually costs, rather than just like some, foundation paying for it out the back, and like, people don't hear about that. And then this way it just brings transparency to the whole thing, for better or for worse.
So we've kind of looked back at a brief history of Parity and Polkadot. If it comes to mind, tell me like a proud memory and moment from all this long journey that you've all been part of. For you, more than a decade. For the rest of us, between 6 to 7 years.
I guess, the main ones are sort of acting in adversity. So, in particular, the sort of the Kasama issues that we've had, and like really sort of coming together and making it, getting it back on its feet. And there were a few of those. There were the wallet hacks, obviously.
The parity multisig.
Yeah. These were difficult times. I mean, it was particularly difficult for the second one because I think I had like a pretty high fever at the time. I had this like mad Mexican flu thing, and then there was some other stuff going on as well, and I just had my second son, so it was like a very intense time.
And that helped the funds for the Polkadot, like one of the Polkadot ICOs, like the money that was meant to be used to build Polkadot.
Correct.
Yeah, there's also something I say to friends, that this company managed to pull it off without that money, actually. And that's something to be.
Yeah, it's still locked. So I guess this is mostly the sort of it's a very sort of diffuse pride, but it's like it's nice that we've managed to gain people that are like really very heavily focused on making stuff work and building stuff better. And I think this isn't usual in this industry.
Missionaries.
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah.
For me, I mean, again, there's been a million, right? I've done so many things at Parity over the years, different types of things. I was an engineer, I was a manager. Now I don't know what I do.
Web developer.
I'm a web developer now, apparently. Tooling, all sorts of stuff. And so like there's been different kinds of pride, I guess, for different things. And also proud of myself for being able to be so involved in a bunch of different things and always learning and always like evolving my understanding of everything. Because when I joined Parity, I also did not know how to use a blockchain. I knew how they worked kind of, but I didn't know how to run the infrastructure. I didn't know how to really interface with them on a deeper level. And so like learning all that was great. And like, I'm proud to be sitting here now with these wonderful people.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Why? I think I can join. I mean, like some years like 2019 and 2020, I like feel like it was like more than 2 years for me. Like it was like I think at least 5 years or whatever. So like, I mean, it was so intense time. We've done so many things. It was like especially then in COVID with lockdown and it was like so much. I cannot remember like all these things we've done, but it's probably the Parachute launch, like then like also about Coco. I still remember it was like then we kind of promised that we will bring it up, and I was like I think then Christmas or whatever, around Christmas 2021 when it then finally launched, or some days before, like people could run some Parachutes. That's like also like these first of like I had this Cumulus thing running and it was like producing blocks and like it was like there was I think we have done a lot, and like it's like crazy if you think about it. It's like all the stuff we have done and achieved, and like all the people you have seen on the way, and like so.
Yeah, I think there's a common theme. If I were to answer the same question, I would say something similar as well. Like the difficult things that happened, but I got through it, so I feel like happy and proud. But with the help of like the rest of you and the team, I think that's definitely something gives a good right sensation. I'm not sure if it's proud, I don't know, gratefulness, but something good there. I think we all kind of hinted at it in our answers. And turning to future, I wonder what is each of your prospects on the future? What's the motivation and drive? What you hope to see?
For me, it's really, I suppose, trying to return to the origins of, sort of why I got into this space in the first place and what Parity is really here to do. I think with Polkadot, we, with the white paper for Polkadot, we put forward a product. that we wanted to build and deliver, and a token behind that product that we pre-sold. And a lot of the last 5-6 years has been in squaring off that promise, essentially, like building that white paper, building that product, making it a reality. And the thing is, this was just a necessary thing to do. This is the right thing to do. It needed to be done. But now it's done, we're free to sort of go a little bit, not go in whatever direction we feel it's good. We have some resources to do that. And I think this is, this freedom is well earned, and we should use it as best as we can. And Jam is part of that freedom. Jam is no longer trying to deliver on a prospectus that was published nearly 10 years ago, but rather it's saying, well, we understand this technology, we understand this, to some extent, this market, or at least the developers within the market a bit better. And this is where we think there's a good sweet spot. Let's sort of deliver it less in a sort of as fast as possible, as sure as possible, but in a more of a in a way that we believe will be long-term sustainable, that will decentralize and distribute knowledge around the world, across territories, across organizations, beyond organization boundaries. So it's a very different premise to Polkadot. Very different. I look at Polkadot as essentially a sort of something that was very much tied to a prospectus, tied to a vision paper. And I look at Jam as something that is a free, almost sort of green field. Here is some construction material, here is some know-how, build what you think is going to be the best thing that it can be. And I think this is a very nice, a nice prospect to have as a developer, an engineer.
Yeah, well-earned freedom, as you said, I think, after everything that has been built. Yeah.
Yeah, I maybe can join to what Gav said. It's more like, as you said it earlier, with like SML and Frame, it was like opinionated, and that was what the Persian product is that it's like opinionated on that if you want to use like or write a decentralized application, that you should write a Persian or a contract or whatever. But if you also look in the grand scheme, it like when you come into the space, it's like I think it's quite different to like how you write normal software, and that probably pushes a lot of people away. So like you need to be kind of crazy to understand all the stuff and write like you cannot do like all these no loops and like no unbounded code, all these stuff you need to take care of. Take care of your resources, don't spend too much resources and all this stuff, which is like we prove that it works, but it's not it's complicated for other people, and like people who just want to tinker around, like what you would call maybe script kiddies or whatever, people that just want to do stuff. And I think that's with Jam something we can achieve by you can just run anything, has already been proven with Doom and like other things. So I think that's a nice future. Bring in the normal people or like whatever to make everybody able to like run your stuff on these decentralized computer, and not like force yourself to, you need to write a blockchain or you need to write a contract. You can just do something.
If I can actually insert my answer to this question here, I think both with the things that have been built, even within like Polkadot with like the parachain rollup model, but even more so with Jam, I think what we are doing, I mean, I don't know how to phrase it. Some of it is Polkadot's work, some of it is your vision, some of it is Parity's work. But I wouldn't use the word believe because it implies like as if there's some blind thing, but I can really see that we are trying to broaden the horizon, like try things that haven't been tried before. And you know, if this is the scope of Web3, crypto, blockchain, whatever you want to call it, that we know of, not only compete within it, but try to like go beyond it and see what else is possible. And this is really like my main motivation to look forward to the future.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like taking all of those old values about, you know, what was to become Web3 and, you know, the earlier internet, you know, people being able to put things on the internet and be free to do so. And now we realize that, you know, there's better ways to do this where you really can't stop it, because that is becoming more and more important in today's world. So for me, like, I've always hung on to that. Like, that is like one of the main things, especially like, you know, coming from like the hacker scene and stuff, you know, people want to be able to do things and not be, you know, like whack-a-mole for like, you know, Pirate Bay or like BitTorrent and stuff like this. You want to be able to use systems like this to disseminate information or, you know, anything that you really want to stick, unlike the traditional web. And like taking all of those ideas or ideals and then applying them to what we're doing, which is, you know, bleeding edge distributed decentralized systems, which is awesome. You know, as a technical person, it's just super fun. But it's also, you know, like that sense of doing something completely brand new, and the excitement that brings, because you don't know what's going to happen with it. But like that's the fun of it, right? And that's great, both from a technical perspective and also from a social perspective.
It's going to the unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
And discovering them. All right. I think this is a good topic to end it.